No, you're very welcome along to Team 33 on this New Year's Eve. Welcome along. I'm Enda Coll. This is Off the Ball, and we're going to be looking back at the 2021 football year tonight. If anybody can remember anything other than COVID restrictions and being locked inside, that is. A lot happened this year in football. We had the rise and fall, the quick fall of the Super League. We had a European competition. The Euros went ahead, and it was a year late, but it was very, very good. Ireland had a World Cup qualifying campaign under new manager Stephen Kenny. Bohemians played in Europe. There's been lots going on, Arthur O'Dea. And honestly, I didn't know most of that happened this year. I wasn't sure whether that happened this year or that happened last year because this year has just been a bit of a muddle.
Yeah, I can't believe that the Super League was this year. I almost refusing to believe that was just so close to the Euros as well. Even the Euros, that feels like a lifetime ago. It's just, I don't know. Maybe that's just something. Maybe we kind of forget about it. Maybe that happens at the end of every year that you kind of like you lose track of time and perspective. But that seems particularly acute. Like that, I can't believe that was this year. It just doesn't feel like it.
I think it's because, I know this is just my working theory, that the winter periods under these restrictions have been so weird and difficult and such a sort of world of their own that the summer where we could actually do things and enjoy things the way they were supposed to be enjoyed just seems so far-fetched and long ago that it couldn't have been in the same calendar year as what's happening right now.
It's like we're going just kind of snowblind. We've just kind of lost our minds a little bit. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
out here, just this grim isolation. No second of
Exactly.
time. Does the sun ever
Exactly.
rise? Does it set?
I wasn't actually even sure what day I was supposed to record the show
No.
at, to be honest, because I was going to record it yesterday, but then I was like, oh, wait, what day is it? And I had to look at my phone twice to make sure that I had the right date. But it's just one of those weird periods at Christmas where you lose time and perspective of which day. What about the year in general? If you could sum it up, good year, bad year in terms of sport and football?
um, oh, look, I think where it was meant to be, where I think the bits that you would want to have been good delivered. So I thought like that the run into the Champions League was class. I thought that was great. I thought the final was great. Like I really enjoyed it. Like I know it wasn't the best game, but I really enjoyed it. That Chelsea City game and the games building up to that as well. The Euros was brilliant. Maybe definitely one of the best tournaments I remember. Um, the Premier League was kind of, I suppose, forgettable enough. It kind of has been with that's kind of run its course. But then even the FAI Cup final as well. Like I think there was a lot of high points where you would want high points, and that's not to be sniffed at because that's by no means taken for granted at all.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I will remember this football year, and you only get a good reminder of it when there were a couple of games now without fans. I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
remember this year for the return of fans to stadiums and what that did to sport because it really showed. And I watched the Man City RB Leipzig game in the Champions League a couple of weeks ago that no fans in it at all, and you just get used to it when it was on. You tailor yourself to what you're watching. But now that I've had fans back in football stadiums and I know what it is, I know the difference because before it was sort of novel. We didn't really know what it was like to watch football without fans, but now we know we cannot go back to football without fans because it is a completely different product.
yeah. Do you remember as well? Like it's so easy, and it will so easily be forgotten. But the pumped in fan noise at empty grounds, like it was just even how quickly that kind of became usual. It was just
Mm.
kind of like this is it. Just it's so surreal. It's so kind of just. I think you're spot on. I think I hinted again, even the FA Cup final again was just such a antidote for that. Like particularly here, I suppose in Ireland, and even the kind of the Portugal game here, and just like to see it really does transform it. It's like a different event altogether. Like it really football without it just is not. Maybe when you still have vested interest, you vested interest, but it doesn't. Geez, it does not grip you in the same way at all. It just doesn't feel as big or as important.
No, not at all. The FA Cup final that Leicester won, which
Oh
again,
yeah,
I'm assured is this year.
yeah,
That was when we got the first sense of fans returning to the games because that was the first big one, and then that was the turning point for me. I remember
yeah.
watching that game and being totally gripped by what was happening because the scale of the jeopardy of the game just felt so much higher when it came to celebrating in front of the fans and how that game ended. It was magical stuff to watch. And it was in a corny way. It was like watching a Disney movie in real life unfold, where people return and it's safe again and all this garbage that you get with those films. But it was fantastic.
And even the Tielemans goal,
Rocket.
amazing. Just one of those where it's just like everyone in the stadium, like, what has just happened? And just a noise. And then, to be fair, like to him afterwards, Gary Lineker kind of catches the whole thing perfectly from the thing. And as all the noises, that was an amazing moment. Yeah, that was absolutely spot on. Again, you could have told me it was any year, but that was brilliant.
Well, let's get into some of the bigger topics that happened this year. Then I mentioned the Super League in the intro, so that unfolded in April of 2021, and that was a really big story when it came to football. I mean, that was groundbreaking stuff, and still is to this day sort of a turning point within football of where the clubs stand, what they want, what they stand for. Their sort of relationship with the fans changed a little bit as well. And I remember when it happened, so people were like, "Oh, okay, it's been rumored for a few years, but it's finally happening. It's finally going to go over the line." And then, sort of in the same way that I remember the off the ball offices in 2019 when everything started being cancelled, where it was 2020 when everything started getting cancelled. Yeah. I believe. So it was like watching the stock market. It was like, okay, oh well, that's horse racing gone, Premier League's gone, FA Cup's gone, League of Ireland's gone. It was just story after story after story. And Manchester City were the first club to pull out of the Super League, which started this domino effect of, Juventus have gone, Barcelona are gone, Real Madrid are gone, Premier League teams are gone, and then it just collapsed. Within the space of a 2-hour window, which Off the Ball happened to be live on air at the time, every single club, bar Real Madrid and Juventus, had pulled out of the Super League plans, and it was just shelved. That was it, gone.
It was really remarkable. It was like living, you don't want to put too fine a point into it, but it's like you're living through something historic, or you're living through history. You're like, it was just so, and I remember, working through it, just not the stress of it, but you're kind of constantly just kind of updating, checking to see, because something seemed to be always happening. Whatever kind of was going on, something seemed to have changed since you last checked. And I think I remember, I was watching that show that night, the radio show, and we're listening to the radio show, I suppose. But and then it culminated kind of in Woodward walking away. And you're like, Jesus. It's like, I don't know, whatever. And the days are all a muddle, but I just remember escalating. And then this completely right field, oh, he's leaving. You're like, God almighty, like how big, and you kind of then, how deep do the roots of this thing stretch? Like how much, it kind of always looked a bit ad hoc and a bit kind of like they hadn't really thought it out or went after it the right way. But then you're thinking, God, there's kind of heads rolling for this straight away. Like they're not even going through kind of any kind of cursory inspection of the whole thing. Oh, where did this all go wrong? It's like, no, straight away, cut, gone, you're out. And it's like, you messed it up, keep going.
Yeah.
And it just, I think, I don't know what you think, but I think it all felt, even at the time, it was fascinating how exacerbated the whole thing was by Sky Sports, by the panel, on their panel. Like that really, I think if ever we have a kind of a view on what, not necessarily what they're capable of, but what they're certainly the interest and reaction they're capable of creating and cultivating. I mean, that was a perfect example of it. Neville particularly.
Yeah, it was Neville's sort of second coming as a political voice or a ranter, or someone who can make change happen. And we actually scrapped the entire show that night on Off the Ball. We had a nicely laid out show, and at 7:30 we had a production meeting, and we just decided, let's throw it all out and let's get everybody we can possibly get on this story. We ended up doing 2.5 hours from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and then online then after that on just the Super League and Ed Woodward being the final story. It was crazy when it happened. And yeah, I remember when it was announced that it was happening, the Super League was coming out, and the graphics were weird. It
Yeah.
looked like they paid like $5 on Etsy to get it made up. And a part of me still sort of thinks this was just the first attempt where, okay, we'll throw the feelers out. We'll see how it's fixed. Sort of like when there's a leak from the Irish government, followed by a press conference a couple of hours later. We'll throw this out to see what it's like, see what the reaction is, and then maybe a few months down the line we'll come to it. But I think the reaction was so vitriol that they're like, okay, we can't do this for another couple of years. They're not ready. It's not going to happen. And they got scared. And what's very interesting about it is the reaction since. And I think fans now know where they probably were unaware at some, like they were aware of it in periods, but I think they're fully aware now that they are full on commodities that the clubs do not care about. They will shift them out at any point. But with the fans returning to the grounds now, I think the impact that has had on football shows you that the product that they have is solely reliant on these fans, that they were so willing to sell down the water for this Super League. I don't think the Super League is going to be possible to do, whether Ed Woodward or whatever ownership comes in from the United States think football can be made into franchises and you can bring them out to America and it'll be the exact same product. It won't be the same product because the fans in these areas is what ultimately makes or breaks this product. And I think that is a lesson that has been learned. I don't think the Super League will come back in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think by and large, you're right. They are. It won't. No, I don't think they could try and do what they've done. But like, they're shameless. Like, absolutely shameless. Like, it's so funny how, like, I know people like Man United are perfect case in point of it. I'm sure there's still plenty of unrest there with what's going on, especially because the results aren't perfect. But it's not that long ago where you'd fans, like, again, for whatever reason, but fans like taking to the pitch and fans stopping a Liverpool game from being played, and kind of that it was kind of predictable enough at the time as well. But like, that's seemingly gone. That sort of initial reaction and gut kind of, that, as you're saying, that kind of vitriolic reaction is kind of gone. And I don't know, like, I don't know what they do from the owners say, but I do suspect that normally, I suppose, if they want something, they're probably going to try and get it again. It's a real, like, it, and it is a real shame when you think about it, because you're spot on. Like, it's just, and we're going back to the other point about watching fans on the ground. Like, it really is kind of, personally, I already think it's gone too far. Like, it's already too much of a big business, kind of maybe irretrievable, but like, certainly at the elite level, I don't know though. I do think that the fans, because you can kind of see it like in the other leagues where they're less competitive and stuff. Like, was it the Italian clubs that were seemingly quite happy fans? There wasn't that much unrest. It's like, yeah, Juventus fans like probably do it something a bit different than just winning the league 8, 9, 10 times in the trot. Like, it's not really much crack anymore. Like, which is kind of, you understand it. So, and I don't know, like, from what, like, your case in point, your point of view. I mean, from a Celtic fans' point of view, obviously it's a bit more balanced now. But like, I wonder how much, despite the fact that Celtic were constantly winning, how much did you enjoy the last, give or take, 9 years without something competitive, without a genuine rival there?
Absolutely loved it.
Well, that's why don't you start following the Dubs?
We see the interesting thing about the Celtic thing is that the competitive edge comes from European football and Champions League football, and like Celtic winning the league gives them a free run at getting into European and Champions League and Europa League football. So that's where the challenge arises. The problem with Juventus that I feel is that they're afraid of the challenge. They're afraid they can't win the Champions League. So suddenly they need to go into the Super League. But the real story here is what you see in the post Super League, where Barcelona, suddenly they're sitting not so pretty in the La Liga and their finances are an absolute mess. They've had to sell Lionel Messi. They've had to, basically decimate their squad just to survive as a club. Juventus, no longer the powerhouses they once were in Italy, don't have money to keep players at the club anymore, don't have the pull to bring their big star managers into the club anymore. This was about money. This was about Juventus surviving. This was about Barcelona surviving, Real Madrid adding to their finances, and the Premier League clubs getting even more richer. The funniest story I find in it is the Tottenham element to it, because everyone kind of laughed at Tottenham in the first place, the fact that they want to be up with Real Madrid and Man United and Liverpool, and without having done the historical thing of actually winning some trophies. And I just think it's very apt that Tottenham were in there, because I think Tottenham are the absolute prime example of Premier League football right now, where everybody wants to sit at the top table without having done what the rest of them have done to earn their right to be at the top table. Like, if you look at the top 5 clubs in the Premier League right now, Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea. Okay, fair enough. Manchester City got loads of investment, but Manchester City have won the league. Manchester City have been to the Champions League final. They've done their time. They've won the FA Cup 6 times, 7 times. Is it a lot of times under Pep Guardiola? Liverpool are 20 plus Premier League titles. Chelsea have won the league multiple times, multiple FA Cups. Tottenham want to be there without having won any of them. And that is what the Premier League is right now. I think Everton had the same opinion in themselves a couple of years ago. They think just because they have a new owner, new shiny stadium, that they deserve to be there. They don't. And that's what I found what was so funny about the Tottenham situation.
I don't know. I think that's incredibly harsh. I think, first of all, the City point of view, City could be any club anywhere in the world. That was just a load of an inordinate, like a lucky spin, kind of inordinate amount of money. They had that Commonwealth Stadium in Manchester, I think from 2002 or something, that was built, and they just took that over, and it was a really handy thing, and they were primed for investors coming in. So that was they were just fortunate. I don't think that, if you want to go off records, I'd have to check it now. And again, if you went off records and taken away what has come since the money's come in, I imagine Spurs are far more successful than City. I think so. Like, I know they did the double in 60, 61 or 59, 60, whatever it was, and they won the cup. And anyway, it was much of a muchness. I don't know. I think Spurs are an example with the stadium alone. Are kind of they do seem like an example of how a club should be run. Like, they don't go mad spending. They don't necessarily spend well, as the kind of the money with the Bale stuff was shown. But I do think that you're being harsh. I don't think it's like Chelsea reported losses there of, what was it, 175, 150 million. And it's like, I would look at that and it's just like, well, that's just a red tape thing. If that's going to matter at all, it'll matter only because of some financial fair play thing that they'll just get overturned anyway. So there we go. Money's no issue there. Man United and Liverpool, fair enough. They are the elite. They have all that cachet. I don't think Spurs. I think you're being extremely harsh. I know they haven't won a lot.
No, I know. I know Tottenham have won things in the past with, almost before. You can count them as a really good club before the Premier League era, really.
Yeah.
And they did have a couple of good teams in the 90s as well. But I'm more talking about Daniel Levy than Tottenham. Let's reel it back a bit. I'll reel it back a bit. Instead of Tottenham being sort of almost, pretending as if they're at the top table, I think Daniel Levy is pretending that he's at the top table without having brought his club to any sort of success.
They got to a Champions League final.
They didn't win it though.
Oh, so they lost, and they lost in fairly unfortunate circumstances with that, that Mane goal, the penalty early on. We're not going back over that, I know, but it was not bad.
Look, these things happen. These things happen. We don't want to spend too much time on this though, because a lot more happened in the year than just the Super League. We'll breeze through a couple of them. Anything in particular you want to touch about before we have to take a quick break and bring Colm Boohig into the mix? We'll leave the Euros for when Colm's here. Do you want to touch on Ireland and the World Cup qualifiers maybe?
It's hard to avoid Ireland, really. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you read it. There was a piece in the Irish Examiner yesterday. John Fallon, who it was kind of a review of the footballing year, and from Ireland perspective, a domestic football perspective. Now, look, I think I don't know what his official standing on it is, but certainly he's not necessarily someone who is open in their praise of Stephen Kenny all the time. And to be fair, I mean, he's entitled. He's there. He's looking at all these games, and he's there firsthand. So fair play to him. But his perspective on this was that, like, slightly unhelpfully, swap the year. Say Ireland had started their campaign off with the wins and the convincing defeats at Luxembourg, whatever else, and then it kind of petered out. And the results Kenny got at the beginning or the results he got at the end. And the kind of, I suppose, his theory is that, like, if that had been the case, then, geez, we'd all be calling for this guy to go. So it has to be in perspective. Like, I think, personally, I don't really see that because, like, I suppose the way it is, we did fairly poorly in the first round of games against all these teams and then improved on every. I think there was, I saw the tweet somewhere, it might have been Neil O'Riordan or someone on Twitter saying Ireland improved on every result against every team we played in those World Cup qualifiers the second time we played them. Every one of the results, which is just like, you can't just flip that and go, well, what if we'd gotten worse each time? Anyway, that just, I suppose, is our perspective. And his take on it was that I suppose that it wouldn't take a lot for the pressure to come back on Stephen Kenny and for his time to be up. I personally think, he's come through a really tough start, riddled with COVID issues and people out and everything else. And he looks happy, which is brilliant. The team seem happy. The atmosphere seems class. They're playing nice football. They're scoring goals. And I'm leaving this year really excited about it. I like now it's at a point where it's definitely, and it always kind of was the way, but I'm looking forward to Ireland matches coming up more than anything else. That's really where the investment of interest will be. I don't know what your thinking is.
I don't know if you flip that on his head. The players are unhappy. You're unhappy. No, look, I saw a tweet a couple of weeks ago as well, or maybe last week, where somebody said that if Arsenal had beaten Man United and Liverpool and someone else, they'd be in the top two right now on goal difference. That's all fair and good, but they didn't. Yeah. You know what I mean? And those results happened in the order that they happened. They didn't happen the opposite way. So the argument falls down based solely on that. I mean, Ireland did improve, no doubt about it. And I think if you look at the sort of combining factors that led to Ireland improving, it's having their full first team, having fit players, having replacements for those who are out injured, having replacements to come off the bench that are going to make a difference, like Jason Knight did against Luxembourg.
Yeah,
but I mean, this is just the reality of the situation. People can call them excuses if they want, but it's reasons as opposed to excuses. I mean, if your club team goes out with 5 of their starting 11 missing 24 hours before the game and they lose, you're probably going to say, okay, yeah, there was 5 of the starting 11 missing. These are the things that happen. And I think the curve should always be going up if you're looking at the improvement. And the curve is continually going up with Stephen Kenny. So I thought it ended on a really positive note, and it did end. To be fair to John Fallon and his sort of the point of his piece, it did end perfectly for Stephen Kenny. And if it, maybe if the tide was different, it wouldn't have. But the reality of the situation is the year ended very well, and that goes into the hard work and dedication of not just Stephen Kenny, but the players that have adjusted to the system. The coaching staff that he's brought in are improving it. They've finally got a settled system now with the 5 in midfield as opposed to the 4-3-3. And it just, I mean, I don't know how you can take a negative spin of that the end of the year and try to turn it on its head. It's just, for me, like you, where I've gone from dreading watching Ireland and dreading the games and dreading the international break to, I can't wait to see if there's more improvement in this game. That's how I feel with Ireland. I think it's always, it's on the slope now where I believe with which each time that Stephen Kenny gets to work with this team, that they're going to improve. It's sort of when, Tuchel had 2 weeks off, or, Ragnick was working with United. It's one of those coaches that you think, if they get a break to work with these players for a solid 2 weeks, they'll improve by the next game. That's where I feel.
And I think that is something that we kind of all consciously kind of forget, or subconsciously forget. It's like just the work it takes. It's not like just, you kind of like that. It actually, I suppose we're kind of a little bit, maybe, I don't know, but like we are kind of a little bit maybe tempted to kind of go, well, X manager can do this. So once he comes in, he'll change that and it'll be fine because they'll just pick it up and go. But like, Jesus, like, it must be an awful lot of work to actually change how a whole group of people play, to try and get everyone on board and try and fit, and obviously have to tweak to suit different people's needs in and amongst all this, especially with international football, where you're like, well, God, because you kind of see it, like, you can kind of, just because there's an awful lot of flexibility in how and where people can play, like, or make the best, like your best left winger might not necessarily be a left winger for the club, and you might, but they might, and just so much things you can actually tweak and play around with. I think he's done remarkably well, just to kind of, his patience and his calmness, and to be sure he was fiery at times, but all in all, like, his general kind of just, I know what I'm doing, I believe what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm thrilled for him that it's kind of he's reaping the benefits of that now, because you don't want to get too mawkish or personal about it, like, but I feel like he deserves it. I think he has deserved this kind of chance now, where almost, right, now we can start into this kind of the Nations League and the Euros, and he has kind of, he now has his base, and now it's kind of, right, now we can judge him. Now we can actually see what he can do when he has a fair shake of it, really.
Yeah, the press conference one's an interesting sort of mix to this, because I think anybody who worked in the media, anybody who's been around League of Ireland before, the press conferences would have been something they may have been worried about when it came to Stephen Kenny, because when you look at Martin O'Neill or Roy Keane, they're clear, dominant, charismatic people who their press conferences are always going to be, they sort of exude confidence in their ability. Stephen Kenny isn't one of those people per se, but I feel like his back has been put to the wall enough over the course of the year where people got to see, all right, this guy really, really cares about what he's doing and really believes in what he's doing, because when his back is to the wall, that's where you see the fiery side of Stephen Kenny. I think that was important in the public viewing him and what they perceived him to be, because he can be a little bit awkward at times when he's sort of within himself. But I've actually spoken to people who didn't follow League of Ireland, never knew who Stephen Kenny was, didn't see him do any interviews before this, and they loved his press conferences because they could really tell that he believed in what he was saying, and he was not going to back down for anybody.
It is, and it is refreshing. He is entirely different. It's not that sort of alpha kind of, you're all here to see me, and I'll tell you what I want to tell you, and that's it. He is kind of, he's very considered, and he does seem, certainly, I suppose, with his pauses and just the way he speaks, that he does always seem to be very considerately thinking and listening, and then kind of, okay, what do I think about this? And then he'll put it out there. It's completely different. He's not, I don't know why that is. You don't really see any people like that, though. I don't know. Maybe when you if you're working in more elite club football or whatever, there's more of a template you kind of have to fit into. But he just seems to be completely his own man, really, and it's his own way he does it. And he just, it's so far so good for him. It is captivating to watch him. I do worry about him sometimes, and maybe that's kind of silly. I don't know why. It's kind of a thing you're kind of watching, like, oh God, I hope, not that you hope you're okay, but you kind of, there's sometimes when it really seems to, any sort of negativity seems to hurt him, or kind of get at him, or kind of just get really under his skin. You're like, oh, you're going to be thinking you're not sleeping tonight. It's just that kind of, you're like, you're not going to brush that off, are you?
No, you can. It does get to him. You can tell if there's been negative press throughout the week and he has a press conference, he comes out firing. So he's clearly been thinking and lurking about it. This is Team 33. I'm Enda Coll on the line with Arthur O'Dea here as we go through the year of 2021 through a football lens. Colm Boohig is going to join us after the break. We're going to be getting our teeth into the Euros, which took place this year, and some of the more large football stories from this year. So stay tuned until that. Now you're welcome back to Team 33. Enda Coll here with you until about 10 o'clock on this New Year's Eve. We're picking through the 2021 calendar year when it came to football. Before the break, myself and Arthur O'Dea touched on the Super League saga that took place earlier this year. We've also touched on Ireland's year in the World Cup qualifiers under Stephen Kenny. Colm Boohig is on the line now as we pick through one of the biggest moments of the year, and that was the Euros. Took place a year later. It finally went ahead. And Colm, I don't know how you felt, but I felt that this was a tournament that did deliver exactly what we expected from it.
Well, I don't think it did deliver what I expected, because I think it was much better than I had anticipated. I wasn't really looking forward to the Euros, if memory serves right. Anyway, I don't think I was. And from the first game was Italy-Turkey, Italy were just brilliant. And there's that Netflix documentary out recently about Italy's Euros, which is really good. People haven't seen it. It's well worth watching. And then right up until the penalty shootout in the final between England and Italy, it's brilliant. It was really, really good. The football was great. There was enough tension as well. There was enough for, I suppose, this side of the world to get behind, because the camp was split whether we wanted England to do it or not. And then, of course, the biggest moment of all was Christian Eriksen, which was just, like, I was watching it back there last night and this morning ahead of our chat today. And I saw it, like, it's funny how quickly you move on from things, and you think about the next thing. And like, I forgot about the drama of those whole few minutes, like when you just didn't know what was going to happen with him. And then the Thomas Delaney initiating the guard around Eriksen as he was getting the treatment. And then what really struck me was a split second before it happened, the camera's actually on Eriksen as he prepares to receive the throw-in. So it's the last time you're seeing him as, before the event happened. So it really kind of took me back watching it. Probably actually took me back more watching it 6 months on than at the time. I can't explain that. But obviously that's just one moment, and we want to talk about the football tournament instead of two, but it will live long in the memory for many reasons, pretty much all I've just mentioned there,
Well, I'll tell you, myself and Arthur had a conversation at the start of this about how muddled this year feels in terms of the football news and just news in general. I actually forgot about the Eriksen thing. I
really
completely put it to the back of my mind. When I was thinking about the Euros, I think about Italy. I actually vaguely remember the Eriksen thing. I didn't have it as a big moment in my head, but now that you mention it, it's probably the story of the year when it came to the football story. It was, I mean, I missed it initially. I'm actually thankful that I missed it, because that's not something that I've gone back to watch. It's not something that I just, my phone started buzzing like mad. All my WhatsApp groups were on fire. Twitter was on fire. Even people that don't follow football were texting me to see if I was watching, and I'm actually thankful that I missed it. Arthur, did you watch it live? Do you have a abiding memory of it?
Yeah, I was working. I remember I was sitting on the couch watching it. What was it? Denmark, Finland, wasn't it? Yeah. I'd be honest with you, I thought he died. Like, I not to be too flippant about it, but I did. I like when it was down there, you're like, oh, someone's collapsed, and you're kind of, I didn't know what it was, and you don't know what it was at first, whether it was just some muscular injury, whatever, just running. But yeah, when the kind of the grief and everything had set in, really apparent, I genuinely I thought he had died. I thought it seemed that way. It seemed like, what, this is going to be kind of a very, very big moment now, and not like in a horrific way, but geez, the image as well of his wife making it down to the touchline, and Kasper Schmeichel kind of trying to console her, and it's remarkable, really. And geez, I forget what the referee's name was who came in for President Taylor.
Yeah. Taylor.
It's incredible how close. I suppose in hindsight, it really did come quite close to that, to the worst case scenario, if not for kind of people really, really clicking on and thinking, what do I actually need to do here? And it's remarkable, really, in one respect, that, like, I suppose it's a good story in one respect in that regard, just how well kind of it was dealt with. But geez, it's striking. And then when you see how far they went on without him as well, you do wonder, like, it doesn't really matter, I suppose, by comparison, but geez, you do wonder if Denmark would have, like, they could have went the whole way with him there, the way they were playing. Who knows? But anyway, but doesn't really matter. But it was, I suppose I again, like Enda, I completely not forgotten it, but I don't think of it as being associated with this year at all.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not that I forgot that it happened. It's just that when I think of 2021, it's not something that immediately springs to my mind. Even when I think of the Euros, it was a lesson in how not to do football direction from the TV perspective. I mean, I think everybody was a bit horrified with what they chose to do, especially considering they don't even show a streaker running onto the pitch, yet they were able to show us a man almost dying on the pitch in front of our eyes. Denmark, they're an interesting story because I went into this Euros absolutely hating Denmark. From an Irish perspective, I hated playing them. I didn't like their players. I thought they were arrogant. And I came out of this tournament, I really wanted them to win. And I had a really different perspective of these guys. I suppose that's what, this sort of thing can do. It can completely change how you view these people as not just footballers, but human beings as well. And I think you got a real good insight into how good some of those players are in terms of their human qualities and what they're willing to do to protect their friend and their family. So, yeah, Denmark were a massive story of the Euros. When I think of this year's Euros, the winners obviously spring to mind. Colm, would we still remember Italy as the team of the tournament if they didn't win?
No, don't think so. I think the game of the tournament was probably Italy-Belgium, and I think they were everyone's favourites after that as an actual favourite team, and then probably favourites to win it. And then the Spain semi-final is kind of overlooked a bit. But like when Jorginho missed his penalty to win it, I had the worst feeling in my stomach ever that I was like, oh my God, England are going to win this. And I did not expect Bukayo Saka to miss at all. It was like when John Terry missed in the 2008 Champions League final. I just assumed he was going to score, and I just sat there and I didn't react at all. And it was kind of the same for a split second with Saka before I went mental. And I think they have to win for them to be the one that were remembered. Yeah, but I think they brought the most joy to the neutrals. They played some great football, and I didn't really associate them so much with playing great football. I just found Italy themselves very entertaining, and I didn't mind the football so much. I didn't mind them grinding out 1-0 wins. I just loved the way they went about their business. National anthem plays a big part in it. Giorgio Chiellini plays a big part in it. But then they actually ended up playing some really good ball, and I think they actually, and also while doing that, they kind of carried a few players too. Who I like. When Chiesa went off injured, was in the kind of halfway through the second half of the final. I feared from them because it's like, Jesus, as well as they're playing and as attractive as their football is, they're actually quite limited in their squad. Yeah. And I think their front three went off at various stages in that final. So they were pretty much toothless in attack, a bit like Denmark were in the latter stages of the semi-final against England. So I feared from them, but I was delighted that they won. And they were, for me anyway, genuinely the best team in it and the most entertaining. So, yeah. But if they lost a penalty shootout, I don't think we'd be talking with them, no. It was that final.
Yeah, they were definitely the most entertaining team in the tournament. By far and away, they were the best team to watch, which is not something you ever associate with the likes of Italy, who are always a very good team, but they're never really the great entertainers of any major tournament. But they were for this one, and they did so with, like you said, loads of players that you would not have said would have gotten into many of the top tier clubs around Europe. But you had a really good system, a really good team, and they just played really well throughout the entire thing. Arthur, we have to talk about England because you have so much to unpack with this England team. Be that the manager, the story of the developing from the Russian World Cup into this football coming home, the feeling around the team going into the tournament, and they don't play all that well throughout the entire thing, but suddenly they're in the semi-finals and you're thinking, oh, are they actually going to do this? Are they actually going to get past the hoodoo and win another major tournament? And they didn't. And it was in spectacular fashion, with the manager making the foible of not bringing on one player who has not played in the game to take penalties, but bringing on two players onto the pitch just to hit a penalty. I mean, what's your abiding memory of this England story and how it came about?
It was funny. I was watching a little bit of the BBC's Sports Personality of the Year, that award show. I think it was on last weekend, and I don't know whether Team of the Year was voted for by the public or what way it worked, but England won it, and Gareth Southgate I think Gareth Southgate, Jude Bellingham, and someone else, I forget who the other person was, came out to collect the award, and he kind of had to sheepishly kind of go, I mean, we really appreciate it, especially as some of the other contenders there actually won something. It was just like, it was just so grim. But that kind of summed it all up. Like, it was just kind of, look, I'm sure, and like, obviously, like, for people, so like, obviously, formerly of Team 33 with Kieran Bradley, right? He enjoyed it immensely, and I'm happy for him. I know he's like born in England, Irish heritage. He enjoyed it immensely. Fantastic for him. Great. I would have liked if they'd won it for him. I mean, he would have been a little bit insufferable, but fine. I can take that. That's good. He would have enjoyed it. That's all right. But my abiding memory of that whole thing is like the day of the final and all the fans and all that sort of nonsense that was going on. It's like, there's so many genuine and fantastic, I'm sure, England fans out there think, but it was almost like, you've unveiled it. You've shown yourself now. It's like you finally got here and you've managed to fool yourselves. Like it was just, I still don't think enough was made then or now of the scenes around Wembley. Like, I don't think that, like, I've never seen anything like that. And I've never seen anything, I really think if that's anywhere else, if the final had been in Kiev or in Moscow or in anywhere else, say in anywhere beyond what normally would have been Iron Curtain or whatever, in Eastern Europe, people would have, all sorts of derogatory things would have come out and everything else. But because it's in Wembley, I know it didn't get swept away. I know it was covered, but I still don't feel like they were incredible scenes. Like, it was crazy. Like, anything could have happened.
Well, the independent report says that, they're very, very lucky that somebody didn't get killed. Like incredibly lucky that somebody didn't get killed. Yeah. Which was an insane thing. And Colm, you sort of alluded to the whole feeling of, people wanting England to win in Ireland, and I was never on board with that, but plainly for football reasons, never mind historical reasons, but for plain football reasons. There are many, many reasons why you should not want England to win a major tournament, and on the day of the final, that unveiled itself in the greatest possible way, with the fans trying to break into their own stadium to get into the final. It was insane stuff.
Yeah, I think there's two things there that kind of debated what could have ended up being fatal was we'll never know for sure, but Luke Shaw scoring so early might have helped, maybe, to refocus minds on the match itself. Because if it was a boring 0-0 in the first half, you could argue that they also would have been distracted, and that because apparently what was happening was when they were getting, so we heard about it ourselves and Off the Ball that week, we were getting loads of contributors on who had been there. And you remember there were fairly emotional reviews that we were getting, and I think the general consensus was that it was madness, that a lot of people there, like a lot of families there, had their seats taken, and they basically, for fear of intimidation, they couldn't get them back, and their whole day was ruined, and not to mention how much it cost them. So anyway, Shaw scores, and England are playing really well, and it's like, Jesus, we're actually going to do it, and maybe there was a bit of cohesion then as a result. And then the other thing that really surprised me was when they lost on penalties. I thought, oh, here we go. Post-match is going to be insane. And I don't know what it was, maybe because it was an awfully long day and people started in the early hours of the morning, and that they had been wiped out by the time, because we had whole extra time and penalties, so we had the longest you can play. And maybe that they were just too wrecked by the end of it to actually do any more damage. But I thought the only way that they're going to do more damage now, this is like the immediate seconds after Saka misses, is if they had won. But the manner that they've lost, this is going to be crazy. And I was, I pretty much stayed up most of that night checking Twitter, checking online to see if there had been any news reports. And actually, I transferred to Sky News, not Sky Sports News, because I thought this is going to be a bit of an incident here. And I was very surprised that nothing happened. Or nothing at all, I don't think, anyway.
Well, you didn't have many riots, but you did have some of the horrific abuse that was leveled at Saka and Rashford. But that, I think everyone expected that as well. As soon as, and again, it's horrific that everyone went straight to that.
Yeah,
but everyone knew it was coming. It was so predictable that the two players the two black players who missed were going to get racially abused
Yeah,
that
but
year,
you know what's
that
one of the
night.
best
It was
moments too?
horrific that's a thing.
You know, it's one of the best moments of the year for me was the first day of the season, Brentford against Arsenal, and Saka came on as a sub, and he got standing ovation by the whole crowd, and I thought that was really genuinely nice. And like, it's easy to be cynical about those things, and but I really like that because it was kind of, there was a bit of show unity there, and you know, like he was given a lot of support in the aftermath, but like to go through that, can you imagine? Like, you know, you're just switching on your phone and you just get all this nonsense back, like, and you're probably trying to swipe away all the badness to get to the good stuff, but you're going to have to see the bad along the way. That's shocking.
Yeah. You mentioned a big story of the year there, so I'll get you to pick your football story of the year before we finish up then. Arthur, do you want to go first? 2021, if there's a football story that catch your imagination or caught your eye, or, you know, it was, if you were to sum up 2021 as a football year, what would it be?
I'd probably be staying close to what we were just talking about. I like nominally, I loved the Roberto Mancini, Gianluca Vialli, that Italian backroom team, everything about their aesthetic, the look, the suits going back to what was the 82 World Cup. How I forget what game it was, whether it was Belgium or Austria, where they captured Mancini and Vialli meeting at the end, the big embrace, and it's like, that whole thing, it was really, really touching stuff. It was just, that was beautiful. I loved how that happened and how it all played out, and that they were there for each other, and obviously other people from their Sampdoria days as well. And it just, that couldn't have been better. Like, I was as happy or more happy for them than any of the players or anything. That was perfect.
Colm?
I was tempted to go with Ericsson too, but just for so many reasons. And like the Finland goalkeeper too, Lucas Radicki, he was the first person to spot it. I remember that. He fell down. But like, we've already touched on that, so I suppose that's kind of an outlier, and I guess that's everyone's moment in 2021, really, because you know, it's just so much more important than anything else. But in the more trivial aspects, I'd say I would say the 48 hours of the Super League, because I remember being like, I was like shocked at myself and a bit disappointed about how disappointed I was. I was like, why do I care? But I was really kind of a bit crestfallen that this is what football had become. And I remember we talked about that, and I think you, me, and Will, I think, talked about it that week, and like, we were like, this is just the start of it. It's going to be worse. And then football just kind of moved on really quickly, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. And I might not know that for another year or so, but everyone's forgot about it. And then like the Champions League final was really important, and you know, Man City and Chelsea, and who's going to win. And it was like, hold on a second, you didn't even want to play this tournament a few weeks ago, and now you think it's the most important thing ever. But yeah, I mean, from the Manchester United played Burnley, I think that Sunday afternoon, 3-1 as well as it was this week. And the match was totally overshadowed by the news that was imminent. And then that Sunday night, I remember being like, this is crazy. And Arsenal tweeting about it, you know, one of many clubs, but I just remember Arsenal's tweet being like, we have joined the Super League, as if it was the best thing ever. And then the stream of abuse in the comments, in the cold tweets. I was like, how are they going to get away with this? Like, and then United not tweeting because they're seeing what's happening, the backlash. I was like, hold on, there might be a chink in the armor here. And then on the Monday morning, Jose Mourinho sacked by Tottenham Hotspur, and it's not a big deal. It's crazy. Like that's a sideshow. And 6 days before the League Cup final, and then they have Ryan Mason in charge, and it was like, that's a crazy story. It's like, no, it's irrelevant. Get this, football's about to finish up completely. I remember Leeds played Liverpool that Monday night at Ellen Road, and it was 1-1, and I don't think anybody could tell me what happened in that game, because all the talk was Super League. And then it finally ended with just before the Chelsea-Brighton game at Stamford Bridge on Tuesday evening, and the fans protesting outside, and Petr Cech getting through the crowd like Moses and being like, we're going to sort it out, don't worry. It's like Petr Cech to the rescue. But at 48 hours of madness. But then the reason for me it's the story of the year is that the way it started falling apart bit by bit, and it was very exciting from Monday night to Tuesday night. The adrenaline was pumping, and then you have just to finish on that, you have Woodward resigning from United and allegedly regretting it that he decided to resign. It's like, I didn't need to do that, but he's gone now and it's too late. Although he's serving the longest ever notice period that I can think of. But Just a crazy couple of days. And we felt very good about ourselves on the Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Football saved. But now, months later, I'm not sure because everybody moved on from it so quickly and they've forgotten about it. And so, therefore, I think it could happen again because our guard is already dropped.
Yeah, we were discussing that before the break. And I don't know. I'm not so sure it's going to happen in the next at least 5 years. I'm unsure. I don't know if they have the bottle to try pull it off again. But I'll finish off with my story of the year, and it is a football story, but it's not quite a football story. It's a story about a footballer, and that's Marcus Rashford. I think he's one of the football stories of the year. From it's not too often that you say that a footballer can overturn actual British legislation. He full on made the British government do a U-turn on legislation that they were about to go through single-handedly. He was big enough to sway public opinion, feeding thousands of children. And I mean, it's horrific that he has to do that, especially in what is perceived to be, a Western culture, a Western country, that he has to help children to actually survive. And the fact that he's done that, I know he's not doing it by himself. He has help behind the scenes, but if it wasn't his title, if he didn't have the stardom of being Man United, being a young Man United player, being an England player, being a black player as well, doing this, it wouldn't have had the impact that it did. And, people have been leveling abuse at him, and people have been saying because his form on the pitch hasn't been matching up where he should be, that he should stick to football, that he maybe just concentrate on his real daytime job. And he's just forgetting about that, and he's now pushing on from food to books to education and helping people who are in situations that he was in as a child to come out of it. So it's unheard of or unheralded at this point in time, and I just think it was phenomenal, good story. And everything that you hear about Marcus Rashford, you're just thinking, God, you are a really, really good guy. And he's younger than me. He's still early 20s. And for him to be doing this, it was phenomenal stuff. I think it's just a really good story from a year of ultimately crap when it came to football.
Yeah, I remember the day that he had that long thread of tweets, and he was mentioning all these different was it businesses that were helping him out, and that was brilliant. Yeah. Oh yeah, he took it to them, and it was kind of a rare example of genuine kind of people power. So it was great, and it was frustrating how quickly people started saying, "Oh, stick to football," because inevitably people got annoyed by it because it was so wholesome, and it was like, how can I pick holes in this? And then I think, unfortunately for him, what happens is that any time he goes through patchy form, it's brought up because it's like, oh, he's lost focus, and he was losing focus. That's why this has happened. And I think if he had ended the year in brilliant, sparkling form that he has previously shown at Man United several times over the years, I think people would be like, oh, what a brilliant guy. I can't believe he's helping people out. But I think it's all connected to his form on the pitch, which is completely irrelevant. But that's what happens to him. But look, that obviously won't deter him because he's going to hear that 1,000,001 times. So he'll keep him going.
It does show you how fickle football fans, though, where the results on the pitch are more important than feeding thousands of hungry children in England. That's
But I wouldn't limit that to football fans. It's just human nature. Yeah, but I'd say he's well prepared for it, and there's good people around him. But hopefully he's just one. I hope he has started a culture where this becomes way more prominent in sports people in general. And hopefully it will. And I actually think that would be his greatest legacy, to be honest.
Yeah, and I should mention Raheem Sterling in this as well, because he's doing. To be fair, a lot of footballers are doing a lot of great things that we just don't hear about.
Well, yeah, that's
but true. This was in the public eye, so I think it's worth mentioning. Arthur, Colm, thanks very much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, so that is us done on this week's and this year's Team 33. Thanks to you for listening across the year, and to listening into the podcast, and for watching the videos, and for listening to us chat football all year on Team 33 and Off the Ball. We will be back again in 2022, which seems weird to say, but hope everyone out there listening has a happy new year and a healthy 2022 as well. For the last time of 2021, take away, Johan.